Miller joins us, ABC News correspondent who is live in Jerusalem. Jordana Miller, welcome to Big 550 KTRS here in St. Louis.
Hi there.
First, let's get to this peace talk and this truce. What is it that is breaking down? What's the sticking point?
Well, it looks like Hamas is showing very little flexibility in its demands for this ceasefire agreement. They want Egypt to open all the crossings at the Rafah border, which is, of course, their border with Egypt. They are looking for Israel to release a number of their members that were arrested last month after those 3 Israeli teenagers were kidnapped and murdered. They want other border crossings also opened between Israel and Gaza. And so far, with showing no flexibility, there's been no movement at this point.
It sounds like it's a one-sided battle in terms of casualties. Is it true that the Israel bombs have killed over 500 people and almost maybe even none of the Israelis have died so far?
Well, the Hamas militants, of course, have been trying to kill Israeli civilians from day one. They've shot over 1,600 rockets into the country, and only because Israel was prepared for such a day, and they prepared their iron defense missile system and their siren warning systems and all of the shelters, the population here has remained safe. So it's not for want of trying. On the other side, the civilian death toll now seems to have topped about 600 since the operation began. And it is a very difficult situation for the people in Gaza, despite Israel's efforts to warn civilians to leave certain areas. Some people have nowhere to go or they get caught leaving. And some, war is not an exact science. Of course, sometimes there are mistakes made and collateral damage. So it's been a very difficult situation, even for Israelis, to look at the pictures of what's happening in Gaza.
Let's talk about that for a moment, because now you're starting to hear stories and hear conversations about the public relations effort, and that the public relations, some people are saying that Israel is beginning to lose the public relations war because of so much damage being done by their bombs.
Well, I think whenever there are operations in Israel, whenever there have been these fights with Hamas on the ground in Gaza, the Israelis are well aware that a picture tells, has the impact far greater than what their spokespeople can say on television. But Israel has tried to really communicate some of the very sinister ways that Hamas wages its war, which is by telling people not to evacuate areas, even though the Israeli army has said to evacuate, by placing their rockets and their launchers in the middle of civilian populations next to mosques and hospitals and schools. And so Israel, I think, has asked a very good question of the leaders of Hamas, which is why they seem to operate from within civilian areas and not in some more open areas in Gaza.
Jordana Miller with us live in Jerusalem, ABC correspondent with us for a couple of more minutes. Is there an Israeli soldier lost somewhere in Gaza?
Well, today the Israeli army announced that there is one soldier who they believe was killed when his armed personal carrier was blown up by an anti-tank missile. His other 6 comrades were killed and their bodies retrieved. One of those bodies, or part of his bodies, is missing, and it may be in the hands of Hamas, which, if that is the case, it is, for Hamas, it is a victory in their eyes, because now we know from the past that Israeli soldiers, dead or alive, have been used in the past to negotiate for the release of Palestinian prisoners.
You mentioned there's a lot of talk now about these tunnels. Talk for a moment about these tunnels, and how much do we know about them, and how many are there?
Well, according to what we're learning day by day in this operation, the tunnels are a vast network that run underneath Gaza and across the border. I think it's a larger network than anyone knew about. Many people knew about before. Perhaps the Army knew some things before, but They say they've uncovered at least 23 cross-border tunnels that lead into Israel, where militants, have tried over the last number of days to stage attacks on soldiers and try to infiltrate into Israel to carry out terror attacks. There are also a vast network of tunnels inside Gaza, and these will link, for example, one rocket launching pad to another that may be 4 or 5 blocks away, and then militants can shuffle underground in safety and carry missiles and reload these pads. So it's they've taken a lot of supplies that were given to them by the international community, and they've built a concrete subway underground.
How long are these tunnels? Do we have any idea?
Well, some are 1 to 2 miles long, and the Israelis are very careful in the way they describe the tunnels. For example, they say they've discovered 23 entire intact tunnels, and they've tried to blow up a number of them. They are blowing up a number of them every day of this operation. But they also find, one tunnel which will have numerous openings. So they say they've already found, more than 45 openings to tunnels all over. Some that originate, the first opening maybe in a school or in a home. So this is what the Israeli army is up against. That's why being on the ground for them, the Israelis say, is so essential, because they really need to go house by house. It also makes the danger much greater.
Jordana Miller, live in Jerusalem. Jordana Miller, be safe. Thanks for checking in.
Thank you.
Jordana Miller, ABC News correspondent, live in Jerusalem. She sounds like she's driving on Highway 40. 728 here, Big 5.